DC doesn't always remove Justice League characters with dramatic endings. Sometimes they simply vanish from continuity. One reboot, one editorial shift, and heroes who once fought beside the League disappear from the universe almost overnight. Characters with powerful abilities, important histories, and real connections to the team reduced to forgotten names fans rarely hear anymore. They didn't retire or die heroic deaths. They were quietly pushed aside as DC reshaped its world. Over time, their absence became part of the new normal. But how do Justice League heroes disappear so completely? Here are 10 Justice League characters who completely vanished from DC continuity. At number 10 is Maxima. Initially debuting within the pages of Action Comics issue 645 back in 1989, the fiery warrior queen of Almerac arrived on Earth seeking a genetically worthy mate. Packing immense telepathic abilities alongside raw physical strength that rivaled Superman, Maxima transitioned from a formidable adversary into an incredibly arrogant yet highly effective powerhouse for the Justice League. Her prominence peaked spectacularly as she stood on the blood-soaked front lines against Doomsday, later anchoring the Splinter faction Extreme Justice with unrelenting ferocity. However, her imposing presence within the broader DC universe was permanently extinguished during the 2001 Our Worlds at War crossover. Making the ultimate sacrifice against the threat of Brainiac 13, the royal combatant perished defending the cosmos. Her abrasive mate-hunting trope aged rather poorly for modern audiences, making her redundant alongside mainstays like Wonder Woman. Consequently, the original Almeratian monarch was left deceased, while a radically different, younger reinvention briefly surfaced during the New 52, leaving the classic heroine completely forgotten today. At number 9 is Maya or Chandi Gupta. Making her debut in the pages of Justice League Europe issue 50 back in 1993, Chandi Gupta earned her spot by assisting the squad with a major threat in London. Operating under the codename Maya, she proudly stood as the first Indian superhero to join the legendary organization. As the youthful rookie wielding a magical bow that conjured projectiles of water, fire, and pure energy, she injected much-needed innocence into an incredibly chaotic roster. During the mid-90s, her prominence peaked throughout the Bloodlines event and her subsequent tenure on the Justice League Task Force. There, she bonded deeply with the Ray and viewed Martian Manhunter as a paternal mentor. Yet, she eventually chose higher education over crime fighting, stepping away for university. She was ultimately a victim of editorial restructuring. When Grant Morrison revamped the franchise in 1997 to spotlight the core icons, lower-tier members were abandoned. Today, apart from one tiny background cameo, Maya remains entirely forgotten across modern DC continuity. At number 8 is Zoriel. Crash landing into the mortal realm, the literal guardian angel, Zoriel brought divine urgency to JLA issue 6 in 1997. Tasked with warning Earth's defenders about a celestial coup orchestrated by a rogue seraph, he swiftly cemented his place on the roster. Armed with sonic screams, indestructible armor, and a flaming sword, he occupied the mythological winged warrior archetype, anchoring the squad to supernatural realms. Throughout Grant Morrison's acclaimed tenure, particularly during the monumental Rock of Ages arc and the climatic clash against Asmodel, the heavenly combatant proved vital as the resident cosmic authority. Nevertheless, as the new millennium dawned, his prominence evaporated from flagship titles. Relegated to obscure magical miniseries, his elite status was silently revoked. His creation originally stemmed from an editorial ban on utilizing Hawkman due to convoluted continuity. Once Jeff Johns successfully rehabilitated the Thanagarian champion, the angelic substitute's narrative utility expired. Following a highly uncharacteristic and bizarre New 52 Phantom Stranger appearance, his revered past is disregarded. But if you think a literal angel disappearing is bizarre, wait until you see the hidden history DC actively tried to bury. Up next, we uncover a terrifying Black Ops telepath, an arrogant founder erased from the time stream, a dark magic conduit, and a classic heroine the real-world writers simply forgot existed. At number 7 is Faith. When the primary Justice League vanished into the past during 2002, Batman initiated a secret Black Ops contingency within JLA issue 69, introducing the enigmatic powerhouse known only as Faith. Operating as a supreme telepath who projected an inescapable psychic aura of absolute calm, her mere presence could pacify global threats and volatile teammates alike. Earning the Dark Knight's implicit trust instantly validated her among the remaining skeptical heroes. She flourished throughout the Obsidian Age storyline, acting as a foundational pillar during writer Joe Kelly's tenure while forging intricate dynamics alongside Major Disaster and Manitou Raven. However, this was a massive industry failure of follow-through. Following Kelly's departure, succeeding creators struggled to navigate her godlike telepathy alongside her unresolved origin story. She was silently shuffled over to the Doom Patrol before being shelved entirely. Erased by the Flashpoint reboot, Faith has not graced a single comic panel since 2005. At number 6 is Triumph. Introduced through a massive timeline alteration beginning in 1994's Justice League America issue 91, William McIntyre was retroactively inserted as a founding member who helped form the original team before being erased from history during an early mission. Wielding formidable electromagnetic manipulation, the arrogant hero known as Triumph finally returned to the present, only to discover nobody remembered his monumental sacrifices. Operating primarily within the mid-90s Justice League Task Force, he constantly clashed with veteran leaders like Martian Manhunter, desperate to reclaim his stolen glory. His agonizing need for validation ultimately engineered his downfall. After making a literal deal with a demon, the disgraced founder spiraled into outright villainy. His existence concluded violently during Grant Morrison's JLA run, where the Spectre transformed him into solid ice before he was completely shattered when Prometheus destroyed the Watchtower. Because he was conceptualized as an unlikable, flawed parody of entitled 90s protagonists, Editorial had zero desire to resurrect him, leaving his remains permanently discarded. At number 5 is Manitou Dawn. Introduced primarily as a supporting ally following the landmark in the Obsidian Age arc in 2003's JLA issue 75, the Apache Mystic formally graduated to the major leagues via the controversial Justice League Elite spin-off. After her husband, Manitou Raven, tragically perished, she inherited his potent magical staff, suddenly bearing the heavy burden of serving as the covert unit's primary conduit to ancient sorcery. Mastering telepathy, precognition, and complex spellcasting, she anchored the gritty 12-issue maxi series. Readers watched her navigate profound grief and nearly buckle beneath her newfound supernatural responsibilities before ultimately shielding Earth against a colossal extraterrestrial invasion. Yet, her subsequent erasure was jarringly abrupt. The exact second the final chapter of that polarizing Black Ops experiment hit the shelves, this powerful shaman just completely evaporated from the publisher's landscape, because editors quickly pivoted back to traditional magical heavyweights like Zatanna and Dr. Fate. A character tethered so intimately to such an aggressively dark narrative became immediately obsolete. Eradicated during the Flashpoint reboot, she remains entirely unmentioned. At number 4 is Moon Maiden or Laura Klein, a massive chronological retcon buried within the oversized JLA 80-page giant issue 3 from the year 2000 introduced Laura Klein. Operating under the moniker Moon Maiden, this gravity-manipulating hero was retroactively established as an original founding member of the legendary Silver Age roster. Fighting alongside icons like The Flash, she supposedly represented the emotional core of that classic era. Her entire peak relevance is bizarrely contained solely within her debut story. The plot reveals a sinister villain known as the Centurion had wiped her from reality and the memories of her peers. Though her comrades eventually remember, save, and gleefully welcome her back into the contemporary fold, by the narrative's conclusion, an ironic tragedy occurred off the page. Real-world writers actually forgot about her, because inserting a brand new founder into established lore proved far too convoluted for ongoing creators to seamlessly adopt. This guest-written novelty character was universally ignored. Consequently, she remains doubly erased from the DC comic book continuity forever. We are entering the absolute graveyard of DC continuity now, where our final 3 missing heroes include a controversial illusionist, a talking golden gorilla, and an absolute joke character DC completely scrubbed from the team's legacy. At number 3 is Gypsy or Cindy Reynolds. Sneaking into the team's headquarters during 1984's Justice League of America, Annual Issue 2, teenage runaway Cindy Reynolds transitioned from the harsh streets to official superhero status. Mastering stealth and casting intricate illusions, she occupied a vulnerable sibling dynamic alongside established veterans like Vixen and Martian Manhunter throughout the controversial Detroit era. Overcoming the brutal dissolution of that specific roster, her trajectory climbed upward as a core participant in the 90s task force and later securing a respectable tenure alongside the Birds of Prey. Then came the 2011 Flashpoint event, which systematically wiped her original incarnation from existence. Although a fleeting dimensional variant surfaced briefly within Vibe's solo series, the classic heroine was essentially discarded. The underlying motive for this permanent exile revolves around her problematic codename and historically insensitive costuming. Acknowledging the glaringly toxic nature of her given title, editorial management ultimately determined that burying her was significantly simpler than executing a comprehensive modernization, leaving her perpetually stranded in history. At number 2 is Congorilla, or William Glenn Morgan. Debuting as a foundational piece of a newly formed squad following 2009's grim Cry for Justice miniseries, William Glenn Morgan brought a wildly unique presence to the table. Housing the intellect of an immortal Scottish adventurer within the towering physique of a mystical golden gorilla, he functioned surprisingly well as an eloquent detective, seasoned tracker, and brutal brawler. This bizarre champion-anchored writer James Robinson's run spanning 2010 to 2011, fighting bravely alongside Donna Troy and Starman while providing crucial physical might during the terrifying Blackest Night event. However, his prominent position collapsed utterly when the New 52 initiative rebooted the entire publishing line. Reverting the franchise strictly to its iconic founders, executives completely expunged this primate's history. Fundamentally a strange relic of classic pulp storytelling, the character thrived solely because Robinson adored obscure vintage properties. Corporate management clearly lacked any enthusiasm for spotlighting a talking beast on their premier flagship brand, ensuring he remains totally absent from contemporary storylines today. At number 1 is Ambush Bug. Entering the grand mythos as an erratic, chaotic nuisance, Erwin Schwab officially snagged his team membership during the massive 52 event in 2006, recruited into Firestorm's disastrously short Justice League of America. Sporting a bright green bodysuit that bestowed incredible teleportation powers and inexplicable dumb luck, this wildly unpredictable misfit occupied the role of the League's unhinged comedic relief. His zenith within this specific unit transpired across those frantic weekly issues, where he haphazardly assisted his inexperienced comrades before the squad dissolved entirely after their catastrophic debut, a battle that claimed the life of Super Chief in their very first outing. Subsequently, his affiliation with the premier heroic franchise was ignored, because his ridiculous, cartoonish antics deliberately shattered narrative immersion. Editors typically restricted him to obscure miniseries or scattered cameo appearances, rather than polluting the serious tone of mainstream team books. While the deranged teleporter pops up sporadically in modern comics, his bizarre legacy as an actual Justice Leaguer has been thoroughly wiped from corporate memory. Comment who should return first, press the subscribe button and bell icon for regular update, and stay tuned for more DC deep dives.